Okay, I think we can get started, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back, inshallah. Your new year, the first week has been productive and has been off to a good start, inshallah. We've missed you guys, so hopefully we can pick back up. If we have any new guests or participants, as a reminder, we are studying the 29th word, which is on angels, the immortality of spirit, and the resurrection. So we have completed the first section, which mainly focused on the spirits and angels, and now we've been studying the resurrection. Dr. Yamina is here with us to help us and guide us through the text. So inshallah, on our last session, which was about 3 weeks ago, we read the second source, and we had just finished it during that session. So we'll kind of give an overview, and if anyone has reflections that they'd like to share from the last couple of weeks or anything that they have questions about today, now is a good time to get those out. Otherwise, we will do a brief summary and then start reading, inshallah. Okay. If not, that's fine. Sarah, did you want to share anything?
So we can just do our quick review of the second source. I believe the second source really focuses on the unity and the immortality that's fundamental to human spirit. The first paragraph spoke to the empirical judgment of if we can conclude in a single spirit continues after death, then it's necessary for all spirits. And it reminded me of what we spoke about in the past in our halakas of ahadiyya, wahidiyya. If we can look at a single thing and confirm in a single thing the qualities that are necessarily existent, then we can, with empirical and not just like blind faith, but come to a firm conclusion that it must be the case for all spirit. That was my summary of the first paragraph. The second paragraph really spoke to man's spirit, and this really comforted me in this review, is not subject to destruction and dissolution. It's a fundamental aspect of the spirit that it must necessarily continue after death. It speaks to the uncompounded nature or the oneness, the singleness of man's spirit, unity, which makes it not subject to destruction or harm. So the limitless compassion of the absolutely generous one would not permit annihilation. And I love the last paragraph, the last sentence here. His boundless munificence would not allow that he should take back from the human spirit the bounty of existence which he has bestowed on it, which it ardently desires and of which it is worthy. I'll pause there Nor if you want to add anything, inshallah Rahman, and then we can see if Dr. Yamina wants to point out anything here and then continue, inshallah.
I think you did a good job. If Dr. Yamina wants to add anything now, that would be nice before we move on to the third source, because I believe we did the second source without her. So we might have missed some things.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So this is the second aim, and this is the first fundamental point. It has an introduction and 4 sources. And in the introduction, the author, Imam Badi'u Zaman Said Nursi rahimahullah, he states that the human spirit is evidently immortal. And then he says, I'm quoting now, however, because materialist thought has stupefied everyone in this age, I think this is true for so many things, because we live in a materialistic culture. Science is materialistic. Everything is materialistic. The so-called civilization is based on materialism, and we are brainwashed in thinking in a materialist way, unless we consciously undo that. So he's saying, however, because materialist thought has stupefied everyone in this age, it has been able to implant doubts in their minds concerning even the most evident matters. And in this point here, the point he's making is that the human spirit is immortal. Even this needs now not one evidence, but many evidences. I mean, the first aim was all about the angels and the spirit, and he's still carrying on with the spirit. In order, back to the quote, in order to remove these doubts, therefore, we shall set forth an introduction and 4 sources from the numerous sources springing from the heart's intuition and the intellect's insight. So these are important because to use our intellect in the way we are used to is different, because usually we take our some beliefs, we take them for granted, we never question them, and then we start reasoning. But here, what we are taught in the Quran is to question the belief with the heart's intuition. The heart is what is going to question those belief, and then the intellect will gain insight, inshallah. So in the introduction, again, quote, he says, an eternal, everlasting, and peerless beauty requires the eternity and permanence of mirror-bearing enraptures admirers. And so the reasoning here is that if the most conscious creature that can encompass and comprehend the manifestation of the divine and the divine purposes and the divine names in this creation, in this world, in this life, is mortal and will be annihilated, that if there is no future for it, if there is no permanence, then it means everything, all the beauty, the perfection around us, all the purposes and the wisdom will all be how would I say? Will all become as though inexistent. They will all become meaningless because if they are impermanent, it's meaningless because wisdom that is not permanent is not wisdom. A meaning or a purpose that is not permanent is not meaningful. That's how we are created. And if the one who makes sense of this is not permanent, then also the purpose of the existence of that perfection becomes useless and purposeless and meaningless. He also says even, so he gives example why this reasoning makes sense. And he says even, so he's basing all his reasoning on our life experience, on what we experience in the world. And the reasoning is taken from the Quran, but in the Quran, whatever we are taught, we are always taught to go and check it out, check the truth of what we are taught in our life, in the creation, here and now. So he says, even an insignificant flower, which has no spirit, when it ceases from external existence, when the flower is not there anymore, it manifests a sort of immortality in 1,000 ways. So even though its physical existence ends, it still has some sort of permanence in various ways. For instance, he says, its form is made permanent in countless memories. Everyone can remember the form of a daisy or a rose, or and finding perpetuation in in its hundreds of seeds. So one particular flower is not here anymore, it ceases to exist, but new similar ones will come. And we know that because the seeds is there. And so the law according to which it was formed continues. There is a law, we understand, there is an order, a law, according to which a particular flower or a particular plant grows and develops. And that law is always there. If you have the seed, you can follow the order and you will get the flower. So even though a particular flower's existence ends, the law subsists. And so this gives it a sort of immortality, a sort of permanence. And so this is something without spirit, and that to us looks like insignificant. In the first source, it was Anfusi. Anfusi means looks to the inner world. So again, quote, if anyone studies his own life and his own self, if we look at ourselves in a reflection, he perceives an immortal spirit. Indeed, this is even without any explanation. If you really stay with yourself, we will realize that the conscious part of us that is watching our thoughts, the thoughts change, the feelings change, but there is something unchanged that witnesses everything else. That thing is the spirit that is conscious. And we know that it is there all the time. It's a matter of our awareness unfolding. It's not really growing. The potential is there, but I am not using it. So it's unfolding, but It doesn't change in the way our thoughts or our feelings or our physical being changes. So indeed, in the course of occupying its body for a number of years, the spirit causes the body to change considerably. Yet the spirit self-evidently remains constant. I mean, the baby grows, and yet we recognize that it's the same person. But physically, it's not the same person at all. A baby and a 10-year-old or a 20-year-old have nothing to do with each other. Yet it is the same person because it's the same spirit. In which case, although the body is ephemeral, the body keeps changing and it's impermanent, the fact that the body is ephemeral does not affect the permanence of the spirit. It does not spoil the nature of the spirit, even though the spirit is completely naked at death. However, in the course of life, the spirit gradually changes its body clothes, and afterwards the body clothes, and then it's just a metaphor, but actually it's not even clothes, the body. It's more like a house. And at the time of death, it is suddenly undressed. The spirit is undressed. It has been established through certain conjecture, indeed through observation, that the body subsists through the spirit. I mean, it's not difficult to understand that the body subsists through the spirit. The moment the spirit is not there, when a person, we say a person died, then we know whoever looks at that body, it's the same body, but just few seconds before it was that person, few seconds later, you feel that it's not, the person is not there anymore. It left. Only the house is empty now. Through observation, we know that the body subsists through the spirit, in which case the spirit does not subsist through the body. Rather, since the spirit subsists and is dominant of itself, the body may be dispersed and gathered together again as it wishes. It will not infringe the spirit's independence. So this was, I think, important to keep in mind or to reflect on. It's Anfusi, so it's something that we don't need to look outside. We can just look inside ourselves, and eventually, this is not something that we understand intellectually only. It's the heart's intuition is also needed, because we stay with it, we feel it. How can we talk about the spirit if we're not feeling it? Otherwise, it becomes just theories. And the second source, he calls it afaqi, which is not inside, but looking at the outer world. And it's interesting that he starts with the infus, with the inner world, because it becomes easier to reflect on the outer world when it comes to the spirit. When it comes to the world in general, we start from the outside because we don't have that presence, that consciousness, that awareness to look inside us and surrender ourselves to our creator. We claim ownership of ourselves, our actions, our knowledge, everything. And so it's very difficult to start the process of surrendering from the inside out. But when we look at the outer world and we understand that nothing owns what seems to be its effect, what seems to be its attributes and qualities, they're actually not theirs. And everything is actually bearing witness to the source of those attributes, those qualities, those actions, those events. And they're bearing witness to the one source, and that they're making shahada, actually, that there is no other owner of those qualities except the only one. The more we do this, the more we reflect on the outer world, it becomes clear that there is only one source. Now we become ready to look into our own qualities, our own claims, and it becomes easier. We are stronger now to let go. Of course, all this knowing is necessary, but not sufficient, because we still need to be willing to intend and make the choice to let go of our false claims. For instance, my life is not mine. It is a gift. I am being gifted with life, with sight, with understanding, with hearing, with everything I have here and now. And once we do this here, now that when it comes to the talking about the spirit, because the spirit is something that I need to become acquainted with myself, within myself, and start identifying with it. It's part of the journey and the process of shahada, because the shahid within me is the conscious part of me. Although in the beginning, when it's afaqi, when it's outside, I am making shahada that, for instance, the giver of life is not water, but whoever is giving life through water. So this is partial awareness. It's partial awareness because I am not still aware that the one who is doing the witnessing is also, I am made to witness. In the first, we talked about this a lot earlier. In the first phase, it seems like I am the witnesser. The witness. I am understanding. I am declaring this. I am. And then I have to let go of that. I am is also done unto me, so that the shahada is complete and there is no shirk left. In that process, we become aware of the conscious part in us, that ruh, and we start automatically identifying more with it than with other identities that we have, but they are not intrinsic. They are not intrinsic to who we are. If you are, for instance, a doctor, that's something you do and you are in a certain way, but before you were a doctor or after you are a doctor, you're still yourself. It's a skill. It's not our intrinsic identity as abd, as being created here and now as worshippers. It can add to our worship if we relate to it in a certain way, or it can add to our shirk if we misunderstand it or misappropriate it. So the second one is afaq. We're looking at the outer world. He says it is, quoting again, it is a sort of empirical judgment which has been formed through repeated observation and numerous occurrences of events. Usually, That's what reflecting on afaq is. That's what we're taught in the Quran again and again. Look, look, look around you. Don't you see? Don't you see? So we look around us and we see. And indeed, when it is understood that a single spirit, Sarah already mentioned this, continues after death, this necessitates the continuation of all spirits as a category of being. If we can be sure that one single spirit is immortal, then we are created in a certain way that we don't even question, oh, maybe only that spirit is immortal. Other people are not. No, because it's a category. They are all the same. They have the same qualities. We understand that inherently. Moreover, with certain intuition, one may perceive with one's conscience that a fundamental aspect of human being continues after his death. And that fundamental aspect is the spirit. As for the spirit, the ruh, it is not subject to destruction and dissolution. And he explains why. This is because it is simple, uncompounded, it has unity. It is one thing. It's not made of things. Destruction, he says, dissolution, decomposition are the functions of complex and compound substances. When different substances come together, then that thing will decompose, or even it seems like one matter, but it's made out of different atoms. Water is one thing, but it's made of two different atoms or something like that. And you say, yes, but the atom is also made of different components. So it's not substance. That's why it has that unity. As we explained above, life ensures a form of unity within multiplicity. It causes a sort of permanence, that is to say unity and permanence are fundamental to the spirit, from which they spread to multiplicity. Here, I won't go into the detail. What is important is, he says, there are two ways that the spirit can be not immortal and not permanent, either through destruction or dissolution. And this is not possible because it has unity, or through annihilation. Whoever created it would annihilate it. But he says then it goes against the compassion of the maker who gave it existence, and it goes against the wisdom of his creation in the beginning, as it was mentioned at the beginning of the introduction. So from what we observe empirically, it cannot be the object of destruction, decomposition, cannot. But when someone said it may just stop existing, the one who gives it existence won't stop for no reason. Giving existence for no reason, because in a way, it's almost like, in a way, the human being is created to give meaning to the whole creation, and the whole creation is created for the human being to fulfill the purpose of his creation. So to annihilate the human spirit means everything is meaningless, and there we shouldn't even be talking about anything, and no one should bother about anything, because there is no meaning, no value, no anything. That's it. We can start the third source. That was like a inshallah, summary in general of the second aim so far, since we gave a longer break. I personally had to remind myself.
Jazakallah, Dr. Yamina. Thank you for that. I think it was good also because every week, we can only focus on so much. So as we get more into the details, we can kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. So it was, I think, good to kind of get a summary and start the year with that overview. Okay, inshallah. Let's start reading the third source. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Third source, man's spirit, which has been clothed in a living, conscious, luminous external existence, is a comprehensive and veracious commanding law disposed to acquiring universality. And even the weakest commanding laws manifest stability and permanence. For if it is considered carefully, it will be seen that present in all species which are subject to change is a constant truth that revolving within the changes, transformations, and stages of life causes the outer forms of things to change, and living and not dying is permanent. Thus, while the human being is an individual, because of the comprehensiveness of his nature, his universal consciousness, and all-embracing imagination, he is like a species. A law that governs and is in force in the species is also in force in the human individual. Since the all-glorious Creator has created man as a comprehensive mirror for universal worship and with an exalted nature, even if the spirit truth, which is present in each individual, causes the individual's outer form to change hundreds of thousands of times, with the sustainer''s permission, it will not die, but will continue, departing as it came. In which case, at God's command and with his permission, and through his making it permanent, the human individual spirit, which is the conscious element and living part of him, is immortal. I think we can maybe go back to the first paragraph because we're told that man's spirit is disposed to acquiring universality, and later, I think kind of building off of that, while the human being is an individual, because of the comprehensiveness of his nature, his universal consciousness, and all-embracing imagination, he is like a species. So how should we understand this? And how can we kind of confirm it or witness it in our own lives? And again, if anyone else has any questions or comments or initial reactions, you can either write them in the chat or unmute yourself and share. And then inshallah, Dr. Yamina can kind of help us understand it better. No questions? Everyone just understood these two paragraphs? Go ahead. And Naima.
So like
I
I
mean,
had I had a question in regards to it isn't this first paragraph, I think it's the next paragraph, and I'm trying to understand when it says when it speaks to the universal consciousness and imagination in the individual, is it saying that they're all separate species? What exactly does that mean? Are
thank
they,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm also looking at the Turkish. So, and again, Dr. Amina will help us delve a bit more into it. But from what I understood, he's saying every human being is like a species on his own. So that's kind of like the surface level meaning of the sentence. But he is saying that because of all these other qualities that he's listing, comprehensiveness of his nature, universal consciousness, all-embracing imagination, that makes every human being kind of like a species on his own.
Ah, okay. Okay, I read that completely differently, so that's helpful. Okay. Um, no, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll go deeper into it, of course.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. And if you guys are shy about turning on your mic, you can always write in the chat and we'll read it.
I'll just jump in. I welcome to our new members. Alhamdulillah, I have my cousin that also just joined for the first time. Welcome, Abdullah. So this, because we're doing this very brief review, this author lived a life and was gifted this consciousness that we are starting to access through words. And it's important to remember that because he was perceiving and living the world with this awareness and is then intending or trying to communicate that awareness that he was living with, that he was gifted with, this illumination in language, which was then translated to English, alhamdulillah. So you can see for me, I mean, even just the first sentence, I just little by little, his language is very telling of where he is with his awareness. Man's spirit is clothed in this living, conscious, luminous external existence.
He's
So-
not talking about the body, by the way, here.
So I was just gonna ask, because in the previous we were talking about this sort of sheath. Yes, please, Dr. Eamon. I'm gonna just, because even just this first sentence just made me pause.
Please go ahead. Go ahead first.
So before we started this whole this 29th word, we started with angels. Now we're on spirit, but we had a whole discussion on these spirit beings that are necessarily existing amidst us, within us, around us. And we, for many weeks, studied that these spirit beings, also known as angels, not only must necessarily exist, but exist through Amr, commanding law. carrying out the commands that we witness in the universe. So all we interact with all day is the commands. I turn on water, water comes out, it looks like this, it acts like this, I put it on fire, it does this. Yani, all day, the only thing we are interacting with is the commanding laws, which makes matter act. I forget the word that Dr. Mina just reviewed, but it's the commanding law subjects the matter. The matter in and of itself is nothing. It's just being moved through this commanding law. So we talked a lot about commanding law being amr from the Quranic language. And everything is but an amr. Everything is but, a command to exist and act in a particular way. So now we're on man's spirit. What this part is, I'm gonna leave this to Dr. Yamina, because it's, may Allah unfold it. May God help this become our lived reality as well. But man's spirit is a comprehensive and voracious of the truest commanding law, disposed to acquiring universality. I remember the way this 29th word first even came into the discussion. There was an article that I shared with Dr. Yamina that was popped up in the news that after a man had died, they were still measuring conscious activity after he flatlined. So his heart flatlined, his body was dead, but they were still measuring conscious activity, and they were absolutely lost. Completely had no idea what was going on. And then hence the article, came to say, wow, there must be something. And then Dr. Yamina shared, yes, the 29th word, which is what we're studying now. So even the weakest commanding law, even if it's just H2O, even, a hydrogen bond or whatever the science book teaches us, they call it, it's a commanding law, and it manifests stability and permanence. And I suppose that the permanence comes into place because the commanding law points to the commander that's giving existence to this thing. So when we're interacting with commanding law, again, it's our feelings. The feeling comes into us through an amr, through a command. My desire to speak is through a command, a commanding law acting on my spirit, connected to my body. So I want to speak, and there's the amr that just commands my body to do what I'm asking it to do. It's absolutely, amazing to pause with. And I'm just going to pause there, Dr. Mina. I would love for you to share anything that comes.
First, if there is anyone else.
I saw Tasnia had her hand up. Would you like to share or ask anything?
Yeah, Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum.
So I have a question, and if this is going to be answered later on, let me know. But I think the question that comes to me is that, so, we talked about man's spirit and how it's, untarnished, and even if anything happens to the physical body, it doesn't, affect the spirit that's inside of me. And I guess the question is, so, when we pass over to the next life, and you know how we say that, like, there's living from the ruh, the spirit that's that's, been breathed in by God, and then there's, living from the ego, the nafs. So I'm wondering, like, so when we die, and if there's like spirits that get punished, or like needs more purification through the punishment, is it the spirit that's being purified, or is it still the nafs part that's being purified, or is it that once we die, like it all becomes just the ruh, and the ruh bears whatever deeds we did in this life? So I was just kind of curious, and I don't know if it's even a relevant question, but I would, yeah. So I just wanted to ask.
Thank you, Tasnia. Alia, I see that you've raised your hand. I'm writing down your question, so if we don't get to it, we'll see what we can do, inshallah. But go ahead, please.
Mine was a comment that when I want to speak, it's like me making dua. And basically then everything else is istijaba of the dua. So the istijaba of the dua is the commanding amr that comes from my creator to actually grant me that wish to speak by ordering all the components in my body, in the environment around me, and in the receiver's body to get this speech to happen in me, then through the environment around me, then to get to the receiver and be understood. So our part is the choice to make the dua, and then our role is to witness the istijaba of dua. At least that's the way that I'm understanding what was shared so far.
That's correct, Alia. And at the same time, what we do is, as Sarah said, it's a command. The command is also a dua. But in this context, we have to focus on the fact that it is a command. I'll make it short. When I see, and because we have something called sight, we can understand that whoever is making us is seeing, and whoever is making everything around us must be creating everything seeingly. But then we understand that, we realize that his seeing is not like my seeing. His seeing is limitless and all encompassing. And so my seeing is not of the same kind, but it is like a unit of measurement that makes me realize the quality, the divine quality of seeing, of sight, of basar. So he is al-basir. So when I am seeing, my seeing, I can say my seeing is a dua for seeing, and I am made to see. There is istijaba, there is a response to my dua. But because seeing is done all the time, we don't realize it. My breathing is the same, my understanding. But because it's done constantly, and like seeing is, we use our will to see one thing rather than look at one thing rather than another, then we usually don't frame it within the dua thing. And all of them is dua, that's correct. But here we want to, just like we understand that Allah is Basir, that our maker, the maker of everything, is all seeing through our sight. We understand that he creates through command, through the fact that we have this ability. I just want to reach something, and my hand goes there. It receives the command and it acts on it. So I'm given this ability to use it as a unit of measurement to understand what a command is. Of course, they are not of the same nature, but it gives me a framework to understand. And here in the beginning, when he says man's spirit has been clothed in a living, conscious, luminous, external existence, he's not talking about the body in the previous source, or maybe in the introduction, I don't remember. He had talked about the body being like a house rather than clothes. And as Sarah mentioned, the ruh is sheathed into something. That's why it belongs to the created realm. It has some, even if it is non-physical, non-material, it is still a created entity. So it has some sort of creation, some external conscious, luminous existence. And we can get an idea, maybe the shortest, simplest way is to compare ourselves to other creatures, for instance, a plant or the flower, like he gave the example of the flower before, and it's relevant to the second paragraph. So our physical existence, in a way, is like other creatures, a flower or even an animal. But a flower is easier to understand because there is less free will. The way when we see the seed, if you are familiar with the seed, you can immediately know if this is planted and looked after, and if it grows, it will grow in, for instance, in a year or two, it will give this kind of flower, this kind of, you can bring a video or pictures, or you have them in your mind, and you know how it will look like, how many fruits it will give, how long usually it takes, if it's too cold, if it's too hot, so there is a law attached to that species, and that's why we can predict things about that, because there is an order, and if we're familiar with the order, then we can predict, of course, not 100%, but somehow. And as far as the human body, the physical existence is concerned, it's very similar. We know there is even, I'm sure in the medical science, at a certain age, they expect the child to be this big, to weigh this much. They have something that they call normal or average and things like that. This is based on observation. It's somehow predictable, let's say. But what makes human being different is that we have free will, but not like a free will of a cat or some kind of animal. Even their free will is limited. They look very much like each other. We never see a cat suddenly decided to be, I don't know, a different cat, or to have a career, or to do something else, stop being a cat or something like that. But human being has a universality to his to this consciousness, universality in the fact that we can think and comprehend things that pertain to universal matters. And even in this life, we can see, for instance, if we take language, we know that every human being has the potential to speak all the languages in the world. But we don't, but yes, but if you take that child to another country, that child will learn that language. It means we have the potential to learn. Not a cat, you can have a cat in your home for years, they will never start speaking your language. They are limited in their being, in their species. But human being has this potential of learning many things. Here it's skills or something like that, but even things that pertain to the unseen, all the beautiful names and different degrees, and learn new things, new inventions. So we have that ability makes every human being, not his physical part. His physical part is just like all other species. But the fact that we have the spirit makes each human being unique and like a species on his own. We can't predict what this child will grow up into. We cannot, because it will all depend on his choice. We know physically will grow, most probably being an adult, healthy, usually will be this big or this, that. But what he will do with his life, everything is possible. I mean, so many things are possible. Not everything, but the possibilities are so endless because of the potential of this spirit and the universality that has been that he's been given. It's disposed to acquire universality. And that's why he's saying even the weakest commanding laws, well, here this is the reasoning. So the weakest commanding laws, for instance, the example that was given, H2O, we call it chemical law. It's a law of bonding of molecules to make something new that is water. It has stability, it has permanence. And if it's considered carefully, it will be seen that present in all species which are subject to change, there is a constant truth. In every species, there is something that is constant, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about species. Revolving within the changes, transformation, and stages of life, this constant truth causes the outer forms of things to change, where yet itself, it doesn't die, but it lives, it keeps living, and it gains permanence. I changed here because I could not understand the English, and I'm basing what I said on the Turkish original. And so he's saying white human being is an individual because of the comprehensiveness of his nature. What makes human being is the spirit. Anything else is like an animal being. That's, you can see how materialistic science is. They say human being, even in philosophy, is a thinking animal. What does it mean, thinking animal? What is thinking without spirit, without consciousness? AI can think now, but who created that? Who produced that? So because of the comprehensiveness of his nature, I mean, even like look at emotionally, we care about things that happen in another galaxy. We have care in the sense of we can be curious about it. We want to learn about it. What is it to you? It's so far. No, it's in our nature. That's in our fitra. We've been created this way. you can see how comprehensive, beyond our imagination. Because of the comprehensiveness of his nature, his universal consciousness. This consciousness is universal. We don't have like, it's limited to this world. Like if I see a picture of another galaxy, I can't make sense of it, or I don't have any reaction, any response. No, we have a response. Even if we don't understand anything, we see the picture, we say, oh, it looks good, it looks bad. Even if I say, what is it to me? I can relate to something that is materially almost, it looks like unrelated. Of course, we've seen that there is nothing unrelated. Everything is interconnected, and physically, materially, everything is interconnected. And that interconnectedness, the mirror of that interconnectedness, is best seen in the comprehensiveness, the universality of of the human spirit. The consciousness is a quality of the spirit, the human spirit, and all embracing. Here it's tasawwur, tasawwurat. So tasawwurat is not only, it's more than imagination. I think unconscious beliefs are also part of tasawwurat. Anything that we see in our mind is tasawwurat. He didn't say khayal, didn't say imagination. So because of this, he is like a species. Every single individual is like a species. I mean, even if you take true twins from the same, with the same DNA, from the same, how do you say, identical twins. Sorry, just a second. Sorry about that. So even identical twins, they have the same DNA, the same everything, but their personality are totally different. Their characters are different. They can choose totally different lives. Their abilities may be different, and our abilities some of them are maybe from birth, but some are also what we are interested in and what we put our focus on. Subhanallah. So there is something that makes each human being like a species when compared to other creation. A law that governs and is in force in the species is also in force in the human individual. In each, well, a law is in force, the commanding amr is in force in everything, everyone. But as far as the particular order is concerned, like a whole species belongs to one law. That's why we can predict that this kind of fig tree will grow in how many years and how it looks like and how it tastes like. But when it comes to human being, we cannot do that because each one is like So I'll stop here and you carry on, inshallah.
I just want to ask if that has made the human being as a species a bit more clear. For me, I think it's starting to. There's still something that is unifying in the human being, but he, maybe because of his potentiality or because of the comprehensiveness, as he calls it, he can be like a species on his own. I just feel like that's something that I have to contemplate further for myself. But it's a really nice starting point. Thank you, Dr. Yamina.
I actually, before the class, just looked up again species because we know it for like animals but like a group of beings. And so when I thought about it like that, and the word comprehensive mirror is here, the human being is the most comprehensive mirror, which means, in some other faith groups and that others may be familiar with that are here on the call, human being is made as a comprehensive mirror relates to being a reflection of the qualities of the maker, being made as a mirror reflecting the qualities of its maker. So because of the comprehensiveness of the human being and how he is made specifically with this universal consciousness, he is like a species. Every other thing that we're going to observe in the macrocosm is also a mirror. And depending on how much I am aware of my comprehensive mirror, I will see, the likeness in every other thing, which makes me and the species, whatever it may be, I just, the oneness becomes more apparent, I think. Mirrors helps this language, and that speaks to universal worship. Dr. Yamina often in the retreat, at least since, this is post-retreat for those that were able to join, there was a lot of talk on all of creation being a mirror. And when you see the maker, when you see the qualities of the maker in yourself, because you're not owning them as the I, like Dr. Yamina was saying, and you can see then the flower is a mirror, the bird is a mirror, the tree is a mirror. It's reflecting whoever made it. The baby, the smile, this. Then that allows for a moment of confirming, the perfection of the maker, which is in essence worship, right? Subhanallah, we say. Without flaws, the maker, for sure. I'm going to pause there. If anybody would like to, I know we're at time. We're almost done with this paragraph.
I also wanted to say, in the first aim, we talked about, in the first aim, first fundamental point, the text said, right, perfection of existence is through life. Life is the light of existence. Consciousness is the light of life. So there was this sort of like hierarchy or like levels of perfection. And I was just thinking like when we look at other, like you said, species or groups of things, as created beings, we're all on that big like comprehensive circle. But then as through those levels of perfection, so among all created beings, then there are those who have life, and then among those, there are those who have consciousness, and there are those who have free will. So the comprehensiveness of our nature here is also that we get to represent all those levels of creation, which comes back to what you were saying, being a mirror to all the qualities and names of my maker. So that was just another thing that came to mind. I see that someone has their hand raised. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I was just gonna add just what you were saying, and I think the other sister had already said some things that I was just gonna say. Comprehensive of a human being is also that friend just explained. We also reflect Allah's all Asmaul Husna, which is 1001 name of reflecting human being. Compare the other fishes, other animals, or other beings or other creature. We are almost like where the Bediüzzaman Zaman had explained in some other places, a small example of whole universe. So comprehensive of the human being is that universal, is almost like everything in the universe is also reflecting human being. So Allah had created human being in such a way, yes, we reflect almost, not almost, actually all of his names on human being, compare the other creatures and other creation that Allah had created in universe. So yes, human being is very, very comprehensive. Compare the other creatures and other creations. Thank you.
And what makes human being so special is, of course, his comprehensive ability to worship, means his comprehensive ability to know God and to reflect the beautiful names of God, to love God, to make him known, to glorify him with all his names. And this quality is the quality that is given to him through the ruh, through the consciousness. That's why in the story of the creation of Adam, which represent all human beings in the Quran, it's clear in the Quran that Adam is every human being. When God creates human being from clay, meaning from matter. But what makes him special is not the matter side, from which everything else is created anyways, but what makes him special is when he breathes of his ruh into human being. Allah, the maker, God, breathes of his spirit into human being, then he tells the angels to prostrate to Adam. So what makes Adam Adam, that all the angels prostrate to, is the something special, is the ruh, the spirit that is breathed into him. And this is connected to the beautiful names of God. That's how we know the names of God, because we created with that ability. In another parallel passage in the Quran, Allah creates Adam from human being from clay, and then he teaches him all the names, or he tells the angels, ask why he's special, and then he says, let them know the names of all things, and he says he's been taught the names. That's what makes him special, and makes him deserving of all the angels prostrating. So the fact that the spirit, the human spirit, comes from the divine is what makes us able to know the divine in a comprehensive way, because the angels know God, but in a more limited way. They are conscious as well. But we have this comprehensive quality, and at the same time, we also have free will, the choice to fulfill this potential or remain totally unaware of it. Most people live their life totally unaware of it. We don't realize, for instance, that when I am speaking, I am actually intending to say something and it is done unto me. When I intend to lift something, I can, if I perform the witnessing, the shahada consciously, and the shahada is at the first pillar of Islam, and it's at the center of being a Muslim. If I perform the shahada consciously, when I am lifting, I will realize that I want to lift, and it's in a way, it's a prayer, but in this context, I command, if I'm doing it consciously. If I'm doing unconsciously, I don't think about it. It seems like I lift, that's it. I don't even think about it. Or if you ask me, I will say, of course, human beings, of course I will lift. And it means nothing. But if I see that I want to lift, it means it's a decree, it's a command, it's a wish, and the wish is fulfilled. Subhanallah. Each time we will witness a miracle. And in fact, that is much more, how do you say? That ability is much wider, more comprehensive than we think it is. Because the body responds to the ruh. So people heal parts of the body by just willing it. Remember in the second source, he had said that it's the body is not subject to the spirits. The other is not dominant over the spirit, it's the other way around. So by God's leave, this is the divine decree, the divine law of creating a human being. This is how he creates us, just like a flower has an order, a law, how it grows. The law of being a human being is that the spirit has these abilities. Most of these abilities, most of us are unaware of them. It doesn't unfold in our life. Because we don't practice awareness, and if we practice awareness, if we practice shahada of the miracles here and now in what we take for granted, what we take for familiar, for ordinary, then those things that look like us from time to time, like, oh, this is like something special, they would be also I wouldn't say possible. They are possible anyways. If it's possible for one case, it's possible for everyone all the time. But they will become maybe, let's say, accessible. Because in the Quran, I'll end with this, the miracles of the prophets are called ayah, signs. It means they are signposts pointing to the divine, to God, to the beautiful names of God. And everything in the creation, everything in every event is an ayah. So it means they also point to the beautiful names of God, they are miracles. Each is a miracle. And every unit of the Quran is also a miracle and points and makes the maker known to us. So it's not that the miracle are brought down, but that everything is up. Everything is a miracle because everything can only be the result of an all-comprehensive power and knowledge and wisdom. And that's what they are declaring. That's what their tesbihat glorification is. That's how they refute shirk, they refute that anything else can create them. Even a molecule of water, for it to exist, the one that sustains it and that gives it existence can only be the one that knows and has power over the whole universe, everything else. So everything is lifted to the level of miracle. This can be our daily life. What I take for granted as ordinary, of course I speak, of course I understand, of course I hear. Hearing and seeing may be even easier to understand because I know that I can lose my hearing or my seeing anytime, and therefore it's a miracle. But this is not enough. This is what usually people say, and it's true, it's correct. No, while seeing right now, it's a miracle because I don't know how I am made to see. So I am witnessing the miracle of seeing. That witnessing is a growing of it's an unfolding of the ruh that is witnessing. The consciousness is being practiced. It's like a muscle. It needs to be, with more practice, it will become stronger. So this consciousness needs to be practiced through the witnessing of the miracles. One way, it's not the only way, but one way is to witness the miracles that are done unto each one of us here and now. And then we will see the unfolding of the potential of the ruh as our consciousness will expand and grow inshallah.
It sounds like a great homework activity for the week. I think nobody, in my experience of studying Islam and the Quran and trying to get closer, quote unquote, to God before meeting this methodology through Imam Nursi rahimahullah, nobody teaches consciousness or how to live through the heart, it's very rare that that this is talked about. So thank you, Dr. Yamina, for very practical, just the practical way to actually grow in the most important thing that we will never learn in school. So to sit, I know Dr. Yamina often emphasizes the breath, and in the retreat we talked about it again, but just even if it's only 2 minutes a day, at night before bed or in the morning before getting out of bed, just to watch your breathing, just to take a moment and just watch it happening unto you for a few minutes. And then maybe we can all just choose one thing in addition to the breath. The breath is central, but maybe, the ease of lifting your arm when I want to pick up something or do something, or just pick one thing to just watch how it's done. And can you really sit there and own that you're the one doing it? Do you control the process? Do you make the process? Do you connect is it your knowledge and wisdom that you're acting with? Are you the one who connects the body and this sophisticated process? I think just one thing, just to practice in addition to the breath. So technically it's 2 things for the week. Inshallah, we'll discuss it in the group. If anybody has any comments that are specifically related to the text or questions specifically related to what we discussed, please feel free to ask now, inshallah, before we close.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Saira here. Very quickly, I had my blood work today done for tumor markers, and I normally am not that great with the needles as much as I do mindful breathing and all, but I realized that anytime I'm poked and I take in a deep breath, what you were saying, Sarah, even if any medical procedure, it's almost like that serves as a buffer, however invisible that action is, when we mindfully engage in it to, you can call it whatever, distract ourselves or, feel comforted. Just like Hazrat Musa alayhi salam was told by Allah that rock yourself and cover yourselves with your arms to feel less afraid of me, or just less afraid. It makes sense why breath work in mental health is so important. And it also makes sense that when we are sustained by just the fact that all kinds of fruits and vegetables turn into some form of similar energy for us to exist, and how each process is contingent, the circulatory system, the excretory system, the digestive system, the pulmonary system of our bodies and of plants and animals, their growth cycles. The paragraph ever talks about, the spirit as well as the species and the functions that we are designed with. How inextricable it is. And the example here that is given about the fig tree dying, but then again, even in dying, it's dispersed. So alhamdulillah, that the seeds are coated with, and nowadays when we hear about, like, if you are violent with the symbol of Palestine, a watermelon, that the seeds are going to disperse. It's no coincidence. Allah Ta'ala is, He designed it all, and with the eternity in mind, the mortal part of our eternal existence is yet again on a meta level and also on a macro level, the confirmation of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's omnipotence. And I'd leave it at that. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, Sarah, for that. So I think the homework and the heart work, as Sarah likes to call it, for this upcoming week is to focus on our breathing with this consciousness, but also anything else that might come our way, like Sarah's blood work, right? So anything that's happening in your life, just try to stay with it and be present and contemplate on it, and inshallah we can share our reflections and anything else in the chat later during the week. With that, it's 9:30, so we will close out here inshallah and start on the fourth source next week. Jazakallah, Dr. Yamina. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة على رسولنا صلوات.